reach.
And that's really the nub of this. The hard part comes next.
That gift of panda diplomacy.
But this is the first time we've done this in modern history.
And we're going to say unprecedented a lot.
The news is just words without the context.
And this is the context.
Tonight from 8 on BBC News and iPlayer.
A crucial court hearing for TikTok that could decide its future in the key market, the United States. Not so smart cities, that's the worry in Europe, with top chief executives warning about slow connectivity. And India braces itself for the biggest media entity thanks to investment from one of Asia's richest men and the Magic Kingdom. Live from London, this is Business Today, and I'm Sally Bundock. TikTok is getting its day in court at a hearing that could decide its fate in the United States. The social media platform is challenging a US law signed by President Joe Biden earlier this year. It aims to compel its Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell TikTok or face a ban. TikTok claims it has more than 170 million users in the US. Our North America technology correspondent Lily Jamali has more from San Francisco.
When the U.S. Congress passed the divestiture ban measure this spring, they did so with rare bipartisan support. Lawmakers said TikTok could share the data of its 170 million American users with the Chinese government and open the door to Chinese propaganda. TikTok has denied those allegations. The company has called the measure an extraordinary intrusion on free speech rights. It will make its case before a 3-judge appeals court panel on Monday and will be joined by creators who make their living on the platform. Department of Justice lawyers will follow with the government's view. All the parties in the case have asked for a ruling by mid-December. That would give the U.S. Supreme Court the opportunity to take the case up before any potential ban could take effect.
Well, let's get more analysis on this from Grace Nelson, who's an analyst at Assembly Research. Grace, welcome to the programme. So just tell us more about what will happen today.
Sure. So today we're expected to see 2 different versions of a case play out about the law at the center of this disagreement. The U.S. government will be, for the first time, giving us a look into those national security concerns under which they're proposing to ban TikTok or force the divestment of ByteDance from the app. However, from ByteDance's perspective and TikTok's perspective, we'll see them try their case under the grounds of First Amendment or free speech protections, alleging that the U.S. government here is infringing on the rights and liberties of not only the app and the platform, which could have great implications for how the U.S. government can go forward and regulate social media under other contexts, but also for the approximately 170 million Americans, as you heard, who use the app.
TikTok is appealing for a speedy process. How long do you think this will take?
Given that both parties have requested this case be heard by the Supreme Court no later than December 6th, and that ironically any ban, should the law be upheld, go into effect on January 19th of 2025, which is one day before a new president would be inaugurated, I would fully expect that not only a quick appeal be filed after the ruling from the hearing today, but also that appeal likely be picked up by the Supreme Court before that January or December 6th asking date.
In the meantime, there's speculation about the outcome, of course, of this legal process, but also it's being reported in some financial press that Amazon and TikTok are deepening ties, with Amazon on the table as a possible buyer of TikTok. Your thoughts on that?
So we've already heard ByteDance express pretty succinctly that they do not believe a separation of TikTok from the company is feasible, commercial or legally. We've seen some concerns that separating TikTok, and in particular the algorithm that powers the delivery of content to key users, would make the product a shell of its current self as U.S. users know it. We've also seen a prior partnership attempt between data host Oracle in the United States and TikTok through their Project Texas initiative. I would be surprised moving forward to see ByteDance willing to offload the asset to a U.S.-only function, and would equally be surprised to see the U.S. government accept anything less than a full divestment from the Chinese firm.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Grace, for your time. Good to get your analysis. Grace Nelson there from Assembly Research. Now, it's a big week for financial markets as the US Central Bank kicks off its highly anticipated September meeting. They gather tomorrow. Investors are expecting the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates this week as inflation continues to trend towards its 2% target. But the question is, how aggressive will Jerome Powell and his team be? Also meeting later this week is the Bank of England, with no change in the cost of borrowing expected by most economists this month. Well, let's unpack this with Susanna Streeter, Head of Money and Markets at Hargreaves Lansdown. Hello to you, Susanna. So really, the narrative has been, yes, rates are coming down in the US this week. It's just a question by how much.
Absolutely. And the expectation is that on balance, it will probably be a smaller 25 basis point cut rather than a bigger one. And that is because even though inflation has come down towards target at 2.5% at the last count, there may still be a little bit of concern that perhaps if there's a bigger rate cut, you could see prices start to run away again. But still, the jury really is out. The Fed could well still vote for a bigger cut. One of the other reasons why perhaps they won't is because it could send a signal that they may be more concerned about the economy than otherwise would be suggested, because it's still going, it's pretty well. I mean, it's still growing, and they may want to allay those fears by moving more gradually with the first slightly smaller basis point cut.
OK, so that's the Fed. And of course, we'll find out. It's a two-day meeting in Washington. We'll find out later on Wednesday what the decision is there. Here in the UK, the Bank of England has its meeting. Many would love to see another rate cut this month, but it's unlikely, isn't it?
It does look more unlikely. And that is because partly inflation has crept up away from target, and we've got the latest inflation snapshot due out before that meeting on Thursday, coming out on Wednesday, and it's likely to show that inflation has continued to edge upwards. That is why policymakers at the Bank of England are widely expected to make no change. However, further cuts are expected in November and December, with additional cuts later next year as well. So I think might have to have a little bit more patience. It does indicate at the moment, certainly financial markets are pricing in the likelihood of no change. So those borrowers who are looking to remortgage may have to wait weeks rather than days for another interest rate cut, but they are on the horizon.
OK, Susanna, always lovely to see you. Have a great week. We'll see you again soon. Susanna Streeter there from Hargreaves Lansdown. Now let's head to India, where the antitrust watchdog has okayed a deal between one of Asia's richest men, Mukesh Ambani, and the Walt Disney Company. The two are coming together to form India's biggest entertainment entity. Runuday Mukherjee looks at what this $8.5 billion means for the country.
From India's top-rated TV series to a highly coveted cricket tournament, or even the English Premier League, they're all now going to be on one platform. A merger that could disrupt India's media landscape. Across smartphones and television platforms, the combined entertainment powerhouse of Reliance and the Walt Disney Company, giving 750 million viewers access to over 120 channels and global content from over 30,000 Disney assets.
These guys will have some...
Industry experts say while it gives the new entity heft to take on the big tech global heavyweights that have been expanding in the country, it could also spark some concerns for the existing OTT players jostling in India's market.
Will they drop prices? And which is the big thing I'd worry about, which is the Reliance strategy over the years. Give stuff at throwaway prices and totally destroy value for the other guy. And you build up your business.
इस बार टाटा IPL जियो सिनेमा पे.
The merged entity's biggest cash cow, broadcasting rights to stream India's most popular sport. In a cricket-crazy nation, Reliance and Disney together now hold almost 80% of the highly lucrative sports streaming market.
This matters.
It's exactly what made India's Competition Commission sit up and scrutinize the deal, says antitrust lawyer Rahul Rai.
The two of them together had shelled out roughly $6 billion US. And once you secure the rights to broadcast, you would like to sell those rights to advertisers. They retain the rights for the next couple of years, and therefore the regulators' concern would be about what would they be able to do for the next couple of years.
Experts also say the watchdog would have needed assurances that the companies don't use their leading market position to squeeze advertisers.
While the companies are yet to disclose what voluntary modifications they will be making to this merger deal, it has been widely reported that they've pledged to not raise prices excessively and discriminate against advertisers, something that would have helped address anti-competitive concerns and ensure that the Indian market remains free from a scenario where there is too much power concentrated in the hands of one entity. Arunodaya Mukherjee, BBC News, Delhi.
Now, here's a question. Could the EU Schengen Agreement and the free movement of people and goods be in threat? From today, Germany will be implementing new border checks that will remain for the next 6 months as the country attempts to curb the influx of illegal migrants. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has denounced this decision as unacceptable, and Germany's been accused of undermining the Schengen Agreement and the free movement of people and goods. Well, let's discuss this with Dr. Rebecca Harding, independent economist. Good morning to you, Rebecca.
Good morning.
Is this just Germany trying to get control of its borders, or is this undermining the Schengen Agreement?
So Germany has been accused of undermining the Schengen Agreement before, back in 2015, when it opened its borders. Actually, we need to put this in perspective. Since 2015, there have been 404 different border closures across the whole Schengen region. So Germany's not alone. The problem that Germany has at the moment is a huge issue with its domestic politics, a huge issue with its economy, and obviously with migration and terrorism as well. So Germany has tried very hard to put this within a legal framework within EU law, and it is only for 6 months. So it's a temporary arrangement so that German politics can settle down a little bit. To some extent, it's seen as an appeasement to the right wing in Germany, but it's also, they're stressing very much indeed, it's a temporary solution. So they're saying it won't undermine Schengen.
So Olaf Scholz is just going to ride the wave of the political backlash in other countries in Europe, as you say, to try and keep people on board within Germany itself, where politically it's proving very tough for his party.
Exactly. So the CDU, CSU, the Conservatives have walked away from migration talks. They're saying this measure doesn't go far enough. But the problem that Olaf Scholz has is obviously that the economy is flatlining at the moment. It's very dependent on exports and export revenues. And the cost for Germany alone of leaving Schengen over a period of time will be around 77 billion euros, which is very, very high indeed. So what he's trying to do is square circles, keep within European law, and try and appease the right wing, because there have also been these elections, regional elections, where the AfD, the extreme right parties, anti-European parties have done so well.
So this is not the Schengen Agreement in crisis, in your opinion. It's something that will blow over?
It's not the Schengen Agreement in crisis at the moment, but what it's done is it's created a really toxic environment within Europe. I mean, migration has been toxic since 2015, so this isn't a new problem. It's been there for a very long while. What it's done is, because it was done unilaterally, and the Poles are saying, Donald Tusk is saying, the French are saying, this was done without consultation. So it's just disrupted that unity across Europe. So it's added to the tensions that are within Europe. And that's the real risk, I think, that it's just been done in a way that maybe was a little bit clumsy. And that threatens Schengen, because it fragments alliances that are there, that are very fragile already around migration.
OK, Dr. Rebecca Harding, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's squeeze in some other business stories. A slew of economic data came out of China over the weekend. Industrial production slipped to a 5-month low, while the country's jobless rate also unexpectedly hit a 6-month high. If you look at what consumers are up to, retail sales, a key gauge of consumption, rose just over 2% in August, which was down from an increase of 2.7% in July. So the data follows Premier Li Qiang's comments last month, where he said the country will focus on stimulating consumption. Thousands of Boeing workers went on strike on Friday after union members at the firm's West Coast factories overwhelmingly rejected a contract offer from the firm, which included a 25% pay rise over 4 years. Asking prices for UK properties risen in September thanks to political stability after the recent election and falling mortgage rates. The average asking price now in the UK has gone up to £370,759, up 1% on the month before, according to Rightmove. The rise comes after a 15% fall in the month of August. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're with Business Today. I'm Sally Bundock. Now, just to say, before we move on, if you were watching me just before that short break, I mentioned that there was a fall in average asking prices for UK houses in the month of August of 15%. Of course, that is not the case. That's a pretty dramatic decline. It's actually 1.5%. So apologies there. That key decimal point missing. Now, the billionaire investor who predicted the global financial crisis has warned the US election risks tipping the world's biggest economy into serious disorder. Ray Dalio founded the world's largest hedge fund, that's Bridgewater Associates, and he is closely watched by other investors to check out what he's picking in terms of stocks and shares. He spoke to our business editor Simon Jack in the days following a television debate between the two candidates for president, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
You have a situation where you have irreconcilable differences. There's a possibility that the loser, particularly if it's the Republicans and Donald Trump, might not accept losing. And you have a situation where it's a win at all cost by both the left and the right. So neither side can compromise. So you have a dynamic which is a particularly risky dynamic. There will be two things to pay attention to. First, can you have an orderly transition? We will find that out quickly. And then after the orderly transition, you have a dysfunctional government in which there's going to be very hard playing against each other. That will be challenging. I think you're seeing now, and you're going to see more of it, people moving to different states because the states represent different living standards, different approaches. And so I think you're seeing more of a fragmentation, a serious conflict between the parties. That's affecting government.
So just spell that out. You're talking about Republicans who live in New York moving to, Texas, and Democrats who live in Texas moving to actually sort of migration within the United States?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in states like California and New York and New Jersey and so on who will go to states like Florida and Texas, partially because of taxes, but partially because of values.
And would you make a parallel with any other period in your study of hundreds of years of history? Where are we? What does this remind you of where we are now?
This reminds me of the 1930 to 45 period in which there was an economic problem, economic crisis, and then 4 democracies chose to be dictatorships. Germany, Italy, Spain, and Japan had parliamentary systems, and they broke down in terms of internal conflict between the hard left, the hard right, communism and fascism. We are today seeing modern day versions of some of these things.
That 33 period onwards led to a world war. Do you think that's a possibility with the fractiousness we see in the globe today?
Of course it's a possibility. I think, though, that we're in a situation in which mad, mutually assured destruction is something that is creating a great deal of hesitation. And I expect or hope that the issue of war nowadays, as we have experienced military war, I think that the probabilities of that are low, but cannot be dismissed. So, because the probabilities are low, largely, I think, because of the consequences.
And a few either-or questions. Binary answers only, please, Ray. Gold or Bitcoin?
Gold.
Dollar or renminbi?
Dollar.
Trump or Harris?
No answer.
Okay.
Both bad choices.
Ray Dalio there speaking to Simon Jack. Now, it was an operation that many senior military figures said couldn't be done, but the Dambusters raid dealt a devastating blow to Nazi Germany's dams at a crucial point during the Second World War. Today, more than 80 years on, the marbles used by Barnes-Wallis when he was developing the bouncing bomb go up for auction. John Maguire has been to see them.
Ready? Stand by. 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Immortalised in the 1955 Dambusters film, Dr. Barnes-Wallis, with the help of his children's toy marbles, is trying to devise a way to attack dams in Germany with a bouncing bomb. And now, what's believed to be the last 2 remaining Wallis marbles to go up for sale are being auctioned near Bristol.
They're just incredible. They are just 2 marbles, 1930s, 1940s marbles, but they changed modern warfare as we know it, and that's a real piece of history. I get goosebumps as I talk to you about it. They're so incredible, really important.
Creating the bouncing bomb took Wallis more than a year and countless tests, many viewed through binoculars, a pair of which he presented to Michael Redgrave, who portrayed him in the movie. And they too are now up for sale.
So you can just imagine Barnes-Wallis on that beach in Kent, looking through those at his new creation being tested for the first ever time. They are just a standard pair of World War II binoculars, but what they've seen is incredible and a real important moment in our combined social history. They're just incredible things.
So the detail is absolutely fabulous on here.
At the Bomber Command Memorial in London's Green Park, the former chair of the Barnes-Wallis Foundation, Paul Beaver, explained why the raid was so vital to the war effort.
I think the Dambusters raid is special. I mean, it demonstrated at a key part of the war that the Royal Air Force could take a target out at range, over 500 miles, and get back and cause significant damage to the enemy at a time when we were trying to keep the Americans on side. And of course, the person who announced it all was Winston Churchill in Congress.
In the early hours of this morning, a force of Lancasters of Bomber Command, led by Wing Commander G.P. Gibson, DSO, DFC, attacked with mines the dams of the Merner and Sorba reservoirs.
So, a great political success, but the raids came at a heavy price. 8 aircraft were lost and 53 crew died. On the ground, it's believed the flooding after the dams were breached killed 1,600 civilians. But after almost 4 years of war, the audacity, bravery and ingenuity of Operation Chastise, as it was known, provided a huge boost for British and Allied morale.
If you look at the skill that's there, that's huge, but also the technology, especially modified Lancaster, and of course the bouncing bomb. It's actually not a bomb, it's a mine, but all done because of the magic of marbles.
And those marbles are expected to fetch up to £6,000, the price of a very small but very important part of one of the Second World War's greatest stories. John Maguire, BBC News, Bristol.
Now, before we go, a quick look at financial markets. I have to say, in Asia, it's a really quiet day because the main market in Japan and in mainland China and South Korea are closed for a public holiday, but Hong Kong is trading, and in Hong Kong, it's actually their property index that is down by more than 3%. But just to mention, of course, in China in particular, things are really tricky right now. The airport in Shanghai is shut. Typhoon Bebinka has been ripping through there, causing quite a lot of chaos. That's the latest here on BBC News. I'll see you soon. Hello there.